Oh, hello. I was just reading this book. It's called Hot Metal. A complete guide to the sculpting. A complete guide to the metal casting of sculpture. I figured since this is a metal casting channel, I'd review it for you. Let me get my notes. So this book was recommended to me and I figured I'd let you know if it's worthwhile or not. Bottom line, yeah, it's worthwhile. Link in the description if you want the book. You want to know why? Stay tuned. But first, if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, the like button, because we do a lot of awesome metal casting projects on this channel. If metal casting's your thing, don't miss out. So the book is 174 pages. What's in it? It's an overview of a lot of different things. It's not like it's a textbook or anything, but there's a lot of good information in here. So the first part of the book is the introduction, and like most books, you could skip it. I mean, it's a typical kind of intro. It's got some poetic wording about the unpredictability of fire, controlling the chaos type stuff.
The energy extends past your limbs and becomes fire.
It gives you a brief history of metal casting, which is kind of interesting. Some safety information, which is actually kind of important. See, remember safety first. But you know, kind of basic, intuitive stuff. Once you get to chapter 5, I think there's a lot more practical information. For people that do lost wax casting, it gives you details on different types of wax, different properties of wax, how to change those properties, and how different temperatures affects the wax. Very important to know. It goes to the process of casting in different styles of mold. For example, a plaster cast, you have to treat differently than a silicone rubber cast. It even gives you some ideas on how to make rubber molds, which is good information. It doesn't go in depth on mold making, but it gives you an overview. For other patterns like wood for sand casting, talks about the draft angles you need, the types of wood that work best. So depending on the style of casting, it's got information for you. On chapter 6, it covers in more detail lost wax casting, the spruing and venting of the wax, meltouts or burnouts. For example, if you sprue it on the bottom versus spruing it on the top, how to vent it, and what type of material you're casting in. One thing I had heard before but was confirmed in the book to me was that ceramic shell doesn't require as much venting because it's porous, and as you pour, it automatically vents through the ceramic shell. I didn't know that. Again, I heard it, but I didn't trust it.
Do you struggle to trust people?
For some reason when I read it in here, now I believe it. It gives tips on the gating. Tips like if you choke the gate, make it narrower on entry, it actually increases the pressure that goes into the void. I guess it's kind of like putting your thumb on the end of a hose. Small detail, but one I guess I hadn't really thought of. The chapter 7 covers more of the sand casting molds. It goes into self-set mold making, types of sand that get rigid, hard, whether you're using resin to do it or sodium silicate and infusing it with carbon dioxide. It gives you an overview on that type of casting. Stuff I've never done, but if you ever do, it's a good resource to have. It goes through ideas of how to make cores and how to make the cores work so you can cast things hollow in sand. One tip, to add wood flour in your core so when the metal shrinks, it can compress easier. Who would have thought of doing that? Not me.
Who knew?
The book goes on to outline some different recipes for things like investment or ceramic shell slurry. I haven't tried them, so I can't vouch for them. It even gives you some ancient recipes back when they would use clay for lost wax casting, and the types of clay and charcoal percentages to use and how to mix those up. So if you ever wanted to practice a more ancient way of metal sculpting, it has some ideas for you there. It also gives recipes for green sand and Petrobond. However, it's not a thorough instruction of how to make it. And I know that because I've tried to make those in the past. So for example, where it gives you the recipe for Petrobond, it calls for 100 pounds of meshed silica sand, 2 pounds of oil, okay, 5 pounds of Petrobond. Well, what is Petrobond? Now, I know it's oregano clays. It's bentone, not bentonite, but bentone. That's the binding agent. It's a chemically altered clay that absorbs oil. You can't just go buy Petrobond. So by this instruction, it's really not that useful. It says P-1 catalyst. What is that? So some sections give you good ideas on how to take things to completion, and other sections of the book I feel are a little incomplete. Like I said, it's not a textbook. Now it goes on to outline pouring procedures for different metals, and it does give specifics. For example, specific pouring temperatures for bronze, specific pouring temperatures for aluminum, whether it's a thick pattern or a thin pattern. It gives you a checklist of what to do and what not to do. So if you're new to metal casting, that's some good information. Even if you've been doing it for a while, maybe you're breaking the rules, like I sometimes do. It gives you an overview of different types of alloys. For example, tin bronze, or lead bronze, or silicon bronze, or aluminum bronze. Chinese bronze, for example, 80% copper, 4% tin, 10% lead, 2% zinc, and 4% iron.
You're fascinating to talk to.
Try making that in your garage. Aluminum bronze, 88% copper, 9% aluminum, 3% iron. That might explain why aluminum bronze is magnetic sometimes.
You're rambling on, no end in sight. You're boring.
One super important part, casting defects and their prevention. So things like a cold shut. What is it? How do you prevent it? Swell, that can deform your mold. That happened when I made the bronze sword. I didn't understand what swell was. It covers metal shrinkage and how to deal with that, and so on. Goes on to touch on cast iron. I've never done cast iron, and it outlines different types of furnaces for smelting, which is different than melting. It has this cool little poem about iron. Gold is for the mistress, silver for the maid, copper for the craftsman, cunning in his trade. Good, said the baron, sitting in his hall, but iron, cold iron, is master of them all. Now chapter 9 is on metal chasing, which is kind of self-explanatory. Cut off the sprues, make it look like there was no sprue there. I feel like that's something you just gotta learn by doing it. Chapter 10 is on patinas. Now it gives some different methods for patinas, including some really weird ones, like burying your sculpture in dirt and manure and leaving it there for months. I guess that's one way to do it. But it also goes into different patina recipes and the different types of colors that they produce, which is good information. I wouldn't say there's anything in here that you couldn't learn online, but some people just like to have a book that'll take them through a journey. Is it really a complete guide on casting and sculpture? No, I wouldn't say it's a complete guide. There's still a lot more that you need to learn than just what's in this book. But yes, I'd say it's a worthwhile book, so if you're looking for a metal casting book, Hot Metal, check it out. I got a lot more projects in the works. Stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.